Well, hello there.
Hello.
Friends, lovers, thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir, and it is happy St. Patrick's Day to all you good people. Good to see we got folks in the chat already, including some folks I know will appreciate a good Guinness. And, Amy, what are you drinking for St. Patrick's Day?
Bailey's Irish Cream on the Rocks.
Bailey's Irish Cream on the Rocks. Yeah. Very nice. I've got Guinness in the Hank Reardon glass. Custom made. I can't see it on the camera. Well, you'll just have to trust me that it is engraved with the great man's name for a reason that we're going to get into. Folks, thanks for joining us on St. Patrick's Day. Hope you are having a great celebratory weekend. Bringing out the green, bringing out the Irish, celebrating everything that needs to be celebrated on this charming death of St. Patrick. Okay, it's not necessarily the day St. Patrick died. There's some question about that, but it is the day of the feast of St. Patrick. This fine Sunday, March 17th, the 77th day of this, your best year yet, with Christmas in just 283 days. Are you getting ready for that? Another drink. I guess we should have had a drinking game. We should have said every time we say, and then we would take a drink. But that's all right.
Oh, wait, how many days until Halloween?
I didn't say how many days until Halloween, but it is 228 days until Halloween, Amy's favorite holiday. Well, today St. Patrick's is everybody's favorite holiday. Another drink. Easter is in just 14 days. Now, given our religious sensibilities, or lack thereof, Easter is a purely secular time for another drink, a purely secular holiday here on 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. But even more important than that is the holiday that comes in just 2 days. Spring is here.
Wow.
Spring is springing. It's awesome. Folks, we have a lot of people, a lot of friends, a lot of people in our circle, the circle of Earth, who are living in Florida, living in Texas, living in Arizona. We have friends in California. We have people who don't care that spring is coming because it's been warm there for weeks, if it even got cold at all. But here in Motown, here in the upper Midwest, and really for half the country and around the world, spring is here day after tomorrow. And we got to talk about that today because we got to take advantage. We have got to live spring with passion because on this day, well, let's go back to let's go back to 461. 461 is when St. Patrick perished. Gone. Goodbye, St. Patrick.
What did he die of?
What did he die? I don't have that in my notes. Do you know what St. Patrick died of?
A leprechaun murdered him.
A leprechaun murder. I'm sure that's the story. Somebody will tell us in the chat, because some of my favorite people are in the chat. Oh, my Facebook one isn't scrolling, just the YouTubes. Oh, there we go. We are on Facebook as well. The author, Jim Ashley, says, top of the morning to you. Or evening. Yes, it is evening. It's half of the world, I'm sure. Shrouded in mystery, shrouded in darkness. 1601, let's jump forward a little over 1,000 years. The first St. Patrick's Day parade. So that's the important thing is I'm sure the first green beer, or in my case, brown beer, because I don't drink green beer. I don't drink a lot. If you're going to drink right. My dear mother drinks Guinness, and that's good enough for me. Let's jump forward a little bit to 1969. Okay, we're jumping forward 390 years. What happened on this date in 1969? I'm jealous. I am green with envy, a theme for tonight. I hope you are as envious as I am of all of the good things in life that you are going to go out and get. Oh, wait, that's one of the 7 deadly sins. That could get us in trouble. On this date, 1969, Golda Meir, elected as Israel's first female prime minister, 1969. This is over 50 years ago. Okay, jump forward to the 1980s. Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister of the UK, of England, of Britain. Female prime... What the hell is going on that the United States has not had a female president yet? Y'all are way ahead of us. I am jealous. I am envious. I am green with envy. Maybe the front runners in this year's election, will have a little trouble, and Nikki Haley will be able to step up to the plate, despite the fact that she's suspended her campaign. I am jealous. 1969, Golda Meir. Israel. Our hearts go out to you, Israel. And no joking about that. Jump forward a little bit. 1973, the Pulitzer Prize-winning photo Burst of Joy was taken. The interesting thing about the Burst of Joy photograph, which I did not know. Oh, I don't have it set up to appear on my screen. Let me see if I can give you this real quick. Some of you will know what the Burst of Joy photograph is. It's a Pulitzer Prize-winning and famous photograph. There we go. And let me resize that so that you can see it. And then tell these folks in the studio to turn that on. Click the switch. There you go. The famous Burst of Joy. You can see the family in great joy at the return of their father. A Pulitzer Prize-winning photograph, very famous. Well, the story here, you may or may not know, this returning soldier, prisoner of war, 5 years in Vietnam. And very tragic when he tells the story of what that was like. But the photograph, of course, captures the great joy of being reunified with that soldier who was held as a prisoner, again, for over 5 years. You know, our hearts go out to the hostages in the Middle East. People who are still, God only knows how, still being held hostage since October 7th. And we tend to say, well, you know, these soldiers too, these prisoners killed and sometimes taken prisoner as well. But they're soldiers. It's part of the job. It's part of the gig. I agree. But that doesn't make that any less tragic. And so when we celebrate on this date that the Burst of Joy photograph wins the Pulitzer Prize, it just brings home to me that this is serious stuff. And I love that photograph, but
yeah.
the story gets me, and it's a story. It's a picture for modern times. You know, on this same date in 1990, so 17 years later, Lithuania. Shout out to all of our friends in Lithuania. Rejects the Soviet demand to renounce its independence. On this day in 1990. Some of you are unsurprised, but nonetheless saddened to see that Vlad Putin has once again won re-election, as if elections in the Soviet Union, oh, excuse me, I mean in the Republic of Russia, mean anything these days.
Yeah.
This bastard who thinks that the Ukraine, oh, that's really part of Russia. Historically, that's really part of Russia, and we're just trying to bring them back into the fold. Well, they tried that in 1990, and Lithuania rejected the Soviet demand to renounce their independence.
You know, let me just say something real quick. Putin, who has no understanding of what capitalism is, no understanding of freedom and human action and why it's important, and why that actually does lead to prosperity. You know, his alternative here is if he wanted to have all the resources in Ukraine, if he wanted to, you know, I'm just trying to find, you know, ways in which, you know, there might have been good reasons for him to unify with Ukraine, for instance, or, you know, unify with Ukraine in terms of trade with them. Maybe own some property, have Russians own some property in Ukraine. You know, build them both up in terms of supporting individual rights, create a constitution, actually have elections that are meaningful, you know, set people free. If he wanted to establish a good, long-lasting, solid relationship with Ukraine, he didn't have to conquer it militarily. But, you know, considering Putin is Putin, and that his reasons for doing things are mystical, based on mysticism, of course we're not going to have that.
Well, I have friends and you're making exactly the right point. I have friends in my circle. I wouldn't call them friends. These are social media friends, not kindred spirits, who say, you know, Putin is a nationalist and you've got to be behind your nation. And Putin believes that he's pushing for Western civilization. As you say, he wouldn't know Western civilization if it bit him on the neck. But you're exactly right. If Putin really was what he claimed to be in that interview with the execrable Tucker Carlson, he would simply establish Russia as a free, liberal, capitalistic country and encourage his neighbors to do the same. Can you imagine if if we in the United States, say, looked at America's hat, that is the country of Canada, and said, we want you to be more free. We want you to drop the socialized medicine. We want you to lower your taxes. We want Canada to be the kind of free country that we are, or wish we were. What would we do? Would we invade it to help its citizens be more free? Or would we simply encourage them to adopt free market principles and respect for individual rights?
Right.
Russia could do all of that. Russia could actually be what Tucker Carlson tried to convince people it was. Prosperous, modern, clean. He's so impressed with the supermarkets that the ultra-wealthy in Moscow use.
Right.
The point is, Russia could be all of those things. And you don't get to be all or even any of those things by taking over neighboring countries. So, I celebrate this day in 1990 when Lithuania said, oh, hell no. Now that the Soviet Union has collapsed, we are not part of Russia.
Yeah.
And my respect, every honor I can feel, and my heart goes out to the brave people of Ukraine who are saying the same thing.
Yes. Oof. Real quick, there was a question in the chat about St. Patrick and why was he a saint? And comes up and he says he's credited to bringing Christianity to Ireland, and was probably responsible in part. That's very. For the Christianization of the Picts and the Anglo-Saxons.
St. Patrick's Day to me is not about St. Patrick, because unlike some saints who have fun stories, St. Patrick was actually a saint. Character-wise, there are ways in which you might say he was impressive for this or that, but no, I prefer the complete Americanization of St. Patrick's Day, the same way that we have Americanized Christmas and other formerly religious holidays. St. Patrick's Day is about the coming of spring and the drinking of beer, and it is actually an official holiday, National Corned Beef and Cabbage Day today.
Corned beef and cabbage is not an Irish thing, not at all. Actually, St. Patrick's Day, the way Americans celebrate it, is not an Irish thing. It's completely Irish-American.
And it's certainly not an Irish Catholic thing.
No. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, St. Patrick did not actually rid the island of Ireland of snakes. No, actually, snakes were never took hold. The population of snakes never took hold in Ireland due to the Ice Age. The fact that Ireland was covered with ice during that time. Snakes do exist in England and Great Britain.
I never allow the truth to get in the way of a good story.
Yes. Yeah.
So yes, it's actually a thing. National Corned Beef and Cabbage Day. Soak your beef in brine forever. And then make a pot roast of it with cabbage and onions and potatoes and the world's largest carrots you can find.
Yeah,
which
it was a
Amy
lot of
did
fun.
Last night.
It was a lot of fun. We went to grocery shopping the night before, and so I have these two very large crock pots, and it's very easy. You just throw in the meat. I bought two about 4-pound pieces of corned beef for each crock pot. Put in some water. Put in some Guinness. Put in some onion. Let that go on high for about a couple hours, and then after that, put in your carrots, and then after that, put in your cabbage. Well, one of the things that I found at the store were these enormous carrots. I mean, it was very, very, very They're very, very, very big carrots.
They were carrots the size of large carrots.
They were carrots of unusual size.
Yes. Yes. COUS's carrots of unusual size. You Princess Bride fans, you'll know what that's all about.
So yeah, I put that one in the one crock pot and
it was a beautiful thing.
It was fully cooked and it tasted delicious. So.
There are people, I won't name Jim, who would like to see more drinking on our show. Be careful what you ask for. That's all I'll say about that. What we didn't say to explain is last night was Great Lakes Objectivists Glow, our monthly dinner and meeting, which was especially good, including several newcomers, and packed tight like sardines in our living room.
Yeah, it was a full house.
It was great.
It's great.
It was a great night. And yes, it did include Amy's, not just corned beef and cabbage. Actually, the most popular dish of the night was the coal cannon.
Yes, coal cannon. Oftentimes, coal cannon is made during Halloween. But it's Irish, so
yes.
So basically, what that is
we need to get you to play the coal cannon song for us.
Right. Well, I'll have to brush up on that.
You haven't played guitar in a while.
So basically, you've got mashed potato. What you do first is you mash. You boil the potatoes, you mash them up, and then you've got about a half a head of cabbage. Start off with about 3 pounds of potatoes, half a head of cabbage. Chop that up into one inch mince with some onion. Basically, cook that down. Make it tender with the onion and the cabbage with some butter in a pan, and then you mix up the mashed potatoes with heavy cream and butter. Mix that up and then gently fold in the cabbage and the onion mixture, and so it's mashed potatoes with cabbage and onion. It's with a lot of butter. It's really good, and cream.
Yes. I got a couple other things to mention, but Petya is anticipating me. She says, in Bulgaria today we celebrate a very old and one of the most important holidays, the Day of Forgiveness. Well, Petya, I found this in my research for this day in history, and yes, in Orthodox religions, it's part of Lent. This is the Day of Forgiveness. So I have to read this passage from Atlas Shrugged in which Hank Rearden is meeting Francisco for one of the first times. And
yeah,
I love it when these guys run into each other at parties and events. Let's see. I don't have the book in front of me, but I printed it out. Where did I put that? Oh, well, I'll find it in a minute. So know that is coming up because you are absolutely right, of course. And it is the Day of Forgiveness. But before I get to that real quick, it's the day Apartheid came to South Africa. We'll tie that together in a bit. Corned beef and cabbage day. It's Nat King Cole's birthday.
Nice.
The great not only singer but jazz pianist. He unfortunately he only lived to 1965. He did not have a long life, but he had a great life. And because the subject of jazz piano came up last night, I had to mention that. Yeah, he was only 45 when he passed away. It's Patty Boyd's birthday, and that's going to get us into the 7 deadly sins, so I'll hold off on that for a moment. Well, see, everything else I have to say is sinful. So are we ready for some sins? Because we're going to rank them. I want to take the 7 deadly sins, and I want to know which one's the best. The best sins. They're all good, but I want to hear your favorite of the 7 deadly sins, or maybe you want to add one to the list. Why do I talk about sin when I talk about all of these other important, inspiring, ennobling things? And it's because it's St. Patrick's Day, and it is a day for drink and good food. And some people would call that gluttony, but I don't. I call that good living.
Yeah,
so,
you mentioning sin real quick, I just have to say, it reminds me of a song by the Pet Shop Boys from the 80s.
Pet Shop Boys. It's a sin.
It's a sin, and they say, everything I've ever done, everything I ever do, every place I've ever been, everywhere I'm going to, it's a sin.
It's all sin. Most of you laugh, but if you believe in original sin, then you know we are sinful by nature.
Yes.
As if that's not an obvious contradiction in
Sinful
terms, but
creatures.
still.
Yeah.
You know, I know, as young children, that made us feel there was something wrong and we were guilty. But, you know, when you get a little older and you learn to appreciate sins, especially the really good ones, you know, it's kind of a good feeling to think, yes, I'm sinful all the time without even trying. So, you think I'm joking, and you're right. But I'm going to make a point, because it is Patty Boyd's birthday. Speaking of sins, one of my favorite sins, the sin of envy. Well, in rational terms, envy actually is a sin. But the flip side of that is jealousy, the desire when you see somebody who has something you want or who has done something you'd like to achieve to say, I'm going to make that happen for me too. And what is the color we associate with envy? The color we associate with jealousy? Well, of course, we're wearing green today. Happy St. Patrick's Day, you good people. Patty Boyd, born on this day. Of course, she was George Harrison's mate for the longest time, and his good friend Eric Clapton said, I'm jealous. In fact, I'm envious of that. I wish that I had George's girl. No, that's a little anachronistic there. But those of you who know your rock and roll history will know Beatles songs like the romantic Something in the Way She Moves was written about Patty Boyd. Well, Eric Clapton, George Harrison's good friend, did eventually steal Patty Boyd, born on this day, away from George Harrison and wrote songs like Layla and Wonderful Tonight about the beautiful Patty Boyd. She's still alive, 80 years old today. Link is in the show notes. Okay, the other birthday I've got, besides Patty Boyd and Nat King Cole, is Kurt Russell. Well, Kurt Russell, all-around charming guy, action hero, dramatic actor, great fun. What could possibly be deadly sinful about Kurt Russell?
Didn't he play Santa Claus in the Christmas Chronicles?
He did, so there's a virtue right there. No, one of the things we love about Kurt Russell is his love life. He has been Goldie Hawn's partner for decades, and they're totally devoted to each other. And they have a production company together, and they are the most charming couple in the world. But notice this. I said the word partner.
What?
They are living in sin. They are unmarried.
Oh, my stars.
That is one of the 7 deadly sins. It's actually on the list.
Clutching my pearls.
I know. How can that be? So happy birthday to Kurt Russell, who is 72 years old today. And that brings me, as we're talking about sins, it brings me to the topic that Petya mentioned. It is Forgiveness Sunday. Now, those of you who've been with us forever, and I know that means you, if you've been with us since episode 8, and that's just a few ago, because this is only episode 203, we talked about trust and forgiveness. And when forgiveness is appropriate. And it's appropriate more often than you might think, which implies also that there are times when it is inappropriate. So, forgiveness to me is one of the 7 actual deadly sins, not one of the ones by the church, even though I also think forgiveness is a crucially important thing to do when it is warranted.
Yeah, let's start out first with, Ayn Rand would say, the only thin, the only thin, hi Bailey's Irish Cream, the only sin is failing to think or to evade thought, to evade reality, to evade your capacity to reason. So I just want to frame that like that. So what's going on, Robert? Your computer is doing interesting things.
No, I am. This is one for the objectivist community out there. I am bringing up the Objectivism Research CD-ROM.
It's the unicorn.
Do you remember CD-ROMs?
Yeah. But this
and I am looking up the expression sin of.
Oh, yeah.
Sin of F. Well, that should have worked, but it didn't. Let's try just sin of
Huh. All right. Okay, well.
What am I doing wrong? This is what you should not drink and compute at the same time. So keep talking. That's really weird.
Huh.
So it took a moment there.
Okay.
And we go to the first instance of sin of which there are 8 in the book Atlas Shrugged. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned, Hank Rearden is meeting this worthless playboy, this ne'er-do-well, this depraved human being, Francisco d'Anconia, maybe the most awesome guy in the book. And, Francisco seeks him out, wants to talk to him. And Rearden's like, why do you want to talk to me? Because Rearden's like one of the most virtuous people, at least in the business realm. And, he has his secrets too. So anyway, they meet, and Rearden says, look, I didn't seek to talk to you, but you've asked for it, and you're going to hear it. To me, there is only one form of human depravity, a man without a purpose. Mm-hmm. And Francisco answers him. He says, that is true. And Rearden goes on, I can forgive all those others. They're not vicious. They're merely helpless. But you're the kind who can't be forgiven. And Francisco answers him. He says, it is against the sin of forgiveness that I wanted to warn you.
Mm. Yes.
Now, those of you who've read Atlas Shrugged a few times, you hear that and you're like, yeah, that's cool, and it relates to like 10 other things that are going to happen. But the first time you read Atlas Shrugged, or at least the first time some of us read Atlas Shrugged, wait a minute, the sin of forgiveness? How can forgiveness be a sin? Well, you know that by the end of the book. I'm sure most of you know what unwarranted forgiveness means, what that does to the innocent and what that does to the guilty.
Yeah, let me read this one quote. I believe this is from, it's from The New Intellectual. But I forget the context of it, but it's a great quote. When men plead for forgiveness, for the nameless, cosmic forgiveness of an unconfessed evil, when they react with instantaneous compassion to any guilt, to the perpetrators of any atrocity, while turning away indifferently from the bleeding bodies of the victims and the innocent, one may see the actual purpose, motive, and psychological appeal of the altruist code. When these same compassionate men turn with snarling hatred upon anyone who pronounces moral judgments, when they scream that the only evil is the determination to fight against evil, one may see the kind of moral blank check that the altruist morality hands out.
Damn right. So again,
important
we are
stuff.
Big advocates of forgiveness when it's warranted. We've done whole shows on it, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it again. But given that we're talking about 7 deadly sins,
but I would say that the sin here is to not understand and identify exactly what is morally wrong in the situation, and turning a blind eye to it. And then saying, oh, I forgive you. And you're just basically blanking out the experience that you just had that was maybe even life-threatening. So yes, that is a sin.
Excellent. So I want to hear your vote in the chat. Your favorite sin. Which one's the best? The best of the sins. Last night was gluttony. Great Lakes Objectivist, corned beef and cabbage, Cole Cannon. I didn't even mention, speaking of Guinness, which we're drinking tonight, Guinness chocolate cake.
Yes, with Bailey's cream cheese frosting.
Made from scratch. In fact, I had to go out and buy a big bag of powdered sugar because we didn't have enough.
That's right.
So made from scratch Guinness chocolate cake. Total gluttony. I like gluttony. Now, obviously, gluttony as the church and as reasonable people would interpret it means not just enjoying things, but enjoying them at the expense of your long-term health and state of mind and finances and everything else. So to the point that it's imprudent. But isn't that true of every value? Some of us, for example, may have so many guitars that are home. Okay, I'm picking a random example. Wouldn't happen to anybody I know, but so many guitars that our damn house is cluttered with them. So, and the point is, anything can be taken to excess. Although I always like Heinlein's line, everything to excess, and budget the luxuries first. But there you go, gluttony. Now, number 2 on our list of possible best sins of all time. Originally, luxuria, fornicatio, lust or fornication. Well, there's Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn. You know what fornication is. It sounds like a dirty word, but all it really means is sexual congress.
Congress?
I don't like the words Congress in that context.
Like, I'm going to be passing some laws in Congress.
We already have I don't like to think of those people as being sexual activity. You know, intercourse used to just mean dealing with someone. It didn't used to mean what everybody takes it to mean now. Outside of marriage. Outside of marriage. And add to that the idea that lust felt in your heart is the same as lust expressed in action. The church has held this for ages. Jimmy Carter made it famous, and then who was it after that who also said that? I don't know. Carter was the first one who admitted on, I think, 60 Minutes, the news program, yes, I have experienced lust in my heart.
Right.
And you look at Jimmy Carter and you think, no, you haven't. But anyway, yeah, that's a good contender. I like it. I like lust. I like fornication. I like romance. Yeah, the church never really talks about romance. I know the Song of Solomon in the Bible. You can find a few passages, but...
Well, let me tell you real quick.
Yes.
The 7 deadly sins is not mentioned in the Old or New Testaments of the Bible. It's not.
Who would have thought that half of what we know in religion was made up by the church? Well, but arguably all the rest of it was made up too, so...
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't until, until the monk Evagrius Ponticus
Yes.
Came along, and he actually came up with a draft of 8.
Yeah, he had 8.
Yeah, until Pope Gregory I decided on 7, because for some reason 7 is a magic number, because you know they were all wizards or something.
One of them in the original 8 was boasting, and I think that ended up getting rolled up into pride.
Right.
And I'm going to talk more about pride. Bit of a spoiler alert here from a comment that was left on my wall when I announced this episode. We'll read that in a bit. But I want to go to a couple of them because a couple of the ones in between. We have greed. Well, Gordon Gekko tells us in the movie Wall Street, greed is good. And it's one of those quirky things where everything he says about it in this little, people call it a speech, he gives a little speech about greed is good. And then he uses it the way a rational person would, as ambition, as values, as a passion to achieve things and to make things happen. And then by the end of the movie, he's shown to be a corrupt businessman. And so it's almost as if everything he said about greed must be wrong. It was so bad the way they set that up. But I like greed. I like greed in the proper sense of ambition. Not the kind of greed that makes you take shortcuts or take advantage of people. The kind of greed that makes you produce. So I'm good with that. Now, there's an interesting one. And Amy, you set me up with a cushion here, a pillow, that I'm going to bring to the fore. And the reason is that the fourth one, see, we're more than halfway through here. The fourth deadly sin. Now, this is not just maybe a bad idea. This is a deadly sin, is sorrow or despair.
Or sadness, I think, also.
On the original 8, it was rendered as sadness. How could sadness be a sin? And there's a sequence. See, we're giving spring recommendations today. We've recommended the movie Babe, for example. As springtime, the sun starts coming out more. You need to watch the movie Babe. Great, great film with Cromwell. What's his first name? I forget the guy's actor. But just watch the movie Babe and you'll see.
It's a great movie. The first one, not the second one. First one.
Yeah, no, never watch the sequel. It's like it's like they tried to ruin everything about the first movie. Heroic. How can it be heroic? It's about a pig. No, you've got to see it. Outstanding. The Secret Garden, Frances Hodgson Burnett. Read the book. The films are okay too. And one other that I would recommend is the series of movies, and especially the first one, 1980s Sullivan production of Anne of Green Gables. Mm-hmm. The recent one, Anne with an E, was pretty good too, but nothing really as good as the 1980s with Megan Follows. Anne of Green Gables.
I'd like to rewatch that soon.
Which one? Both of them?
The Megan Follows, Anne of Green Gables.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about it is it's so good that it bears repeated watchings. And there's a line in the book, and in the movie, tomorrow, this could be my post-it note for the week, tomorrow is always fresh with no mistakes in it.
Yay!
What a great line from a great story. Tomorrow is always fresh with no mistakes in it. But there is a sequence in the book, early in the book, and there's a certain amount of challenges and even tragedies in the book. And there are things that our protagonist regards as tragedies, even though it's because she has a flair for the dramatic. She's very passionate about her values, and small things can bring her to tremendous despair. And she says that to Marissa, to her caretaker at one point. She said, I'm in the depths of despair. The depths of despair. And
then Marilla
says, Don't despair. Despair is to turn your back on God. And you've got to see the way that it's said. And it's very funny and very charming. But it's also a belief that people have, that to experience despair is irreligious. Because, don't worry, God's got this. Modern way of saying it, but that idea that if you think that your problems are greater than the larger purpose out there was actually considered a sin.
One of the things they do say in the Old Testament, I believe it's the Old Testament, they talk about things as God's law, and that you shouldn't break God's covenant,
yes,
his law,
and you should not second guess him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's a sin,
right. Right, and but to despair is to, I don't know, it's such a convoluted mishy-mashy of free will and determinism. I don't know if I'm coming or going. So, but I mean, do you just say, okay, I'm gonna let God, or I'm gonna, what do you do exactly? Do you take action? Is there any advice out there? If you're despairing, yes. Hence the validity and extreme wonderfulness of Ayn Rand's perspective on morality, which is highly usable and helpful.
Well, it's in that sense that I'm going to say, nope, I'm for sadness. I'm for despair. And what I mean is sadness, despair, these reactions, these emotions, these evaluations, they got a job to do. And we have done, of course, whole episodes on that. Your emotions have work to do. Let them do that work. Your emotions are not tools of cognition. You don't say, well, I feel this and therefore I'm going to do this other thing. No, they're just clues.
Right.
They are not logic. They are hardly even data, but they tell you there's data there to be found. So you do need to respect your emotions. You just need to realize they're emotions. They're not thinking. They are important. We talked about this in the context of grief. When you experience grief, you've got to go through it.
Yeah.
There are ways you might make it faster, it might go slower, but you've got to go through what you've got to go through because your emotions have a job to do, and you've got to let them do that job.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about that. I would say it depends on how you define what despair is. Mm-hmm. Is it just a greater form of sadness?
Right.
Or is it
metaphysical?
Or is it something where you're giving up on life?
Right. Never give up.
And you could also take Marilla's term, despair means to turn your back on God. You could say despair means to turn your back on your ability to reason.
Right.
Your ability to connect with reality, your ability to problem solve,
right.
your ability to value your life as an end in itself.
Yeah, and you're making the point very well that for every one of these 7 deadly sins that I'm going to champion, there is a reason why a reasonable person might say, well, yeah, but here's how that can be a bad thing. And I'll skip the next one and go skip one just to pick an obvious one. Sloth.
Yay, sloth.
I'm hard-pressed to make a case for sloth. I don't know.
I'm all for sloth right now.
I guess the best case for sloth would be as an antidote or a contrast with the sort of OCD personality who worries a lot about tidiness at the expense of their actual values, who can't leave a small mess in order to go out and do an important thing, who worries, let's bring worry back into it, who worries too much. But I feel like I'm really pushing it there. Sloth.
I would say you've got an example right here.
Okay.
Because I've been pushing myself. I've been trying to work. I've been doing all this stuff, and I have not given myself. This is my 4th week of having a kind of sinusitis, like a chronic sinusitis, and hence the sniffles. So I apologize for that. But oh my God. I need to embrace sloth right now.
Sloth. What does sloth mean to you in that context?
That means refusing to work, refusing to do anything but rest and take good care of myself. And and not push myself. Like going to flamenco this morning and barely getting through it.
I like it. I feel like we're kind of pushing it to make sloth into a virtue.
I know. Although sloths are kind of fun. You know, they're so very slow moving.
3-toed sloth.
They're so very slow moving. And then they get out.
Are they really that slow, or is that just a movie thing?
No, they are. And they get out and they basically crawl into the middle of a road, and people have to get out of their car and actually move them. Because they won't make it.
Okay. I skipped one, which is wrath. Rage.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but some things deserve your outrage.
Yes.
And some passions are inachievable by repressed personalities. You know, Leonard Peikoff made the point in My 30 Years with Ayn Rand. You cannot love anything without hating just as passionately that which you see as the antithesis of that which you love. So in that sense, okay, I'm okay with wrath. I am okay with loathing and despising that which is the opposite of that or destroys that which you value. Wrath implies going off, going by your emotions. It implies irrationality. So it's another one you've got to kind of take it the right way.
Or as Conan the Barbarian once said, to crush your enemies, to see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentations of their women.
Yes, that is the good. Absolutely.
Oh, Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah. Well, Stephen Katz is pointing out that sloth in the deadly sins refers to sloth with regard to upholding your religious obligations. Yes, we really are taking this all out of that context, but we kind of will go back and forth. It's important to make these connections. 2 more left, real quick, and this was on the list of 8, the original list. Mm-hmm. So these 2 go together. Vanity, or vaingloriousness, in other words, being vain with regard to your own glory, and superbia, or pride. And there they include hubris. And
that's a cool word, superbia.
Superbia. I have a superbious sense of my own superb self.
I don't live in suburbia. I live in superbia.
Ooh, damn. That's where I want to live. And I don't need to say much about pride. Because, let's see, Carrie on the Facebooks, in a public thread, I don't usually say people's names unless it was a public thread, says, in all seriousness, I would have said pride is the best sin. Except closer reading on what the Catholics meant about pride seems rather different than how I use the term. So for now, I can only vote on the worst sin, which is definitely sloth, because self-sustaining and self-generated action is necessary for life. For an advanced exercise, we could compare the 7 sins with these 7 cardinal virtues. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. And we don't have much time, but we are going to do exactly that. I am for now, and I appreciate all of the votes and the comments in the chat. I may have missed a few of them, so I'm going to have to go back and reread. But let me read this from Ayn Rand. Pride is the recognition of the fact that you are your own highest value. And like all of man's values, it has to be earned. That of any of the achievements open to you, the one that makes all the others possible is the creation of your own character. That your character, your actions, your desires, your emotions are the products of the premises held by your mind. And that a man must produce the physical values he needs to sustain his life, so he must acquire the values of character that make his life worth sustaining. That as man is a being of self-made wealth, so too he is a being of self-made soul. I'm going to give pride the crown of the virtues. Oh, wait. I'm stealing that formulation from Aristotle, who regarded pride as the crown of the virtues. Now, there were, you may or may not already know this, but there were actually 7 cardinal virtues, or some people call them heavenly virtues. And let's see how these compare. Because we are enjoying a life of gluttony, lust, greed, despair, wrath, sloth, vanity, glory, and pride. How about this? Let's go with these 7 heavenly virtues.
And this was enumerated by Pope Gregory I and then also elaborated on by Aquinas.
Right. Chastity. It makes me immediately think of cultures that worship, that prize virginity in marriage or in romantic relationships.
The idea of the value of a woman or man is whether or not they've had sexual, congress.
Yes.
But
if you fall in love with somebody and get together physically, that diminishes your value in some way.
It's like, that just reminds me of animal husbandry. The idea of you got to round your sheep up, and then you've got to get the rams together with the ewes, and
if they get together with the wrong animal, they're somehow tainted. Tell me any other domain of human life in which the greatest qualification is, I've never done this before and I have no idea what I'm doing.
Well, and there's also, interwoven throughout all of this is the Platonic separation between your mind and your body. Mm-hmm. And, anything that has to do with your body is wrong. And that your spirit or your mind in that case is somehow very pure and completely disconnected or totally differently categorized than your body. It's insane. So anyway, go ahead.
So if I was going to do the flip side of what I did before, and I'm not, but if I was, I would say, well, what's the best case for chastity? The best case for that idea is it's bad to sleep around. It's a bad sign of bad self-esteem. It's probably bad for your health. Eventually you'll catch something. Some of the things you catch you can't actually get rid of. Okay, I get that. But no, to hell. Ooh, I like that. To hell with chastity. Number 2, faith. Faith is kind of like chastity in that chastity is, I have no experience and no idea what I'm doing. Some people will tell me, well, you could read up, maybe watch some videos. But faith is the same way. I have no idea why I believe this, other than I've been told, and because if I had reasons, it wouldn't be faith, it would be reason. So I'm going to throw faith out with chastity. I'm going to say, that's got no grounding. The opposite of faith would be reason.
Yeah.
So there you go. In the church, by the way, the opposite of faith is idolatry. Mm-hmm. Believing in the wrong God. You believe in that God, not that God. Oh, how am I supposed to know which one? Like everybody else does. Just shut up. Go sit in the back pew. Okay, real quick. The 3rd virtue is good works. Oh, that's kind of self-referential. What's the word I'm looking for? Circular there. It's good because it's good. Their good works are good.
You're
good things.
I'm coming up with a different list than you are, but go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Concordiance. Well, doesn't that kind of go with faith and good works? Act in accordance with, what's right. Well, what's right? What the church told you, what your parents told you, what your particular culture told you.
Is that like just obeyance?
Yes,
kind of thing?
obeyance. Yeah. Exactly, concordiance. Here's one on Guinness Night here. Sobriety.
Oh.
And here it's taken as, the opposite of gluttony. So sobriety as opposed to indulgence. Well, no, I'm not for sobriety in that sense.
Yeah.
Yes, the kernel of truth there is that you should eat rationally, drink rationally, because you are an integrated entity of mind and body.
Yeah, that can also be called temperance.
Temperance, exactly, temperance. Yeah. But I'm going to throw it out because I'm going to take it the other way because we're almost done here. Second from last. The second from last virtue. Number 6 of the heavenly virtues. Wait for it. Patience.
You're funny.
God, I hate that expression, wait for it. No, patience. Well, patience is a virtue. But impatience is a virtue too. Eagerness, anticipation, excitement, energy. I get it. Some things take time. And some things even take paying your dues. So I get it. But I'm certainly not going to make that one of the 7 great virtues. It's a good thing. And finally, the final one. And this is the climax of the heavenly, or what was the other word for it? Virtues. Cardinal virtues. Humility.
I mean, that kind of goes along with obeyance.
Yeah, what on God's green earth is the value of humility? There are people who talk about humbleness as an expression of dignity and decorum, and I get that. Okay, there's no reason to be braggadocious when, say, somebody that you're hanging out with is having really, really hard times, and all you can do is say, oh, that's too bad, now let's talk about me. I get that. There's no reason to make other people feel bad. In fact, we could get into the actual vice of envy, which is wanting other people to feel less than you, not because you want to feel good about yourself, but just because you live to compare yourself to others, the Peter Keating syndrome. Mm-hmm. But no, I'm throwing humility out. I'm not good with that. What does your list say? Is it say humility? Is that the word?
I think it's it pairs up humility against vainglory or pride.
Okay, so they are using the word humility. Good.
And then charity against greed or covetousness.
Right.
Chastity against lust.
Yeah, charity would go with good works here. Chastity, we have the same one.
Gratitude as opposed to envy.
Yeah, see, I love both of those. I love gratitude is one of my favorite.
Yeah. Temperance against gluttony. Patience against wrath. And diligence against sloth.
Well, they got one good one in there. They slipped gratitude in there. I am good with that.
Yeah.
Because that belongs on my list of top virtues. And for reasons that we've covered in whole episodes that we've done on gratitude.
Shall we go over what Ayn Rand said were the 7 virtues and compare? Or should we keep talking about the sins? I
actually think we can kind of wrap it up here. I mean, we could... If you like, go through the 7 virtues and see if there are any ways you want to connect them to the ones we talked about.
I mean, by the way...
But at this point, I'd be looking more for take-home points.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's true. It is 5 minutes until the top of the hour. But real quick, I also learned that in a lot of interpretations, blasphemy is something that you cannot go to confession for. If you blaspheme, then... you have a straight ticket to hell. No ifs, ands, or buts. No appeals to God's law. No forgiveness.
Really?
I don't know. Maybe that was
harsh.
Maybe that was more Old Testament than New Testament. But But yeah. I mean, the thing is that
Rude.
these virtues here kind of get us. Where does it get a person? What does it get a person, or what does it empower a person to do?
Well, here on Earth, it doesn't get you anything, but
well, I mean, what does it encourage you to do? Not empower you to do, because it encourages you to obey the powerful people around you. It encourages you to not be sensual or sexual or even equate love with sex. And it some of it's okay, but some of it's so very contextual.
We need to do an AMA on this because there's so much in the chat that I'd like to jump on here, and there's no way we would have time. But
well, we could go over if you want a little bit.
Well, we could get into some of the real. There are actual quandaries or problems, difficulties. What do you do if you are, for example, ambitious? Paolozu says you jump the queue. Why do we not jump the queue? Why are we civil? Why are we dignified? Why do we use decorum? Why are the best virtues in life related to Ayn Rand's virtues and not any of this religious stuff?
I think the closer that you get to a society or political system, I'm not going to make this case exactly like this, but there is a certain, if you're not a peasant or serf living on some, nobleman's farm and your life doesn't belong to you, or if you're not a slave in Africa or a slave in the United States in the past, or you're not, human trafficked in today's current situation, whatever it is. If you are in a situation where you can get a job, can actually live your own life and sustain your own life and actually go out there and pursue your values in a free society, or at least a semi-free society in what we have today, you can't just rely on obedience or concordance or however. You can't just rely on humility or acquiescing to the word of some power structure or some politician or some king or master or whatever it is. So you've got to actually make your own decisions and choices. You're kind of saturated in a situation where your free will is really important to use. And so as we are in a semi-free society today in 2024, going back to these crazy ideas of, obey your elders or your tribal chieftain or your priest or whatever it is, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't make a lot of sense to people. People ignore that part of religion, and so they should. So the more chances you have for freedom of action and thought, the more you're going to lead yourself away from these sort of dogmatic ways of thinking. So what do you find here? You're giggling.
Oh, sorry, the chat is great tonight. Matthew Humphreys pointed out these are the heavenly virtues from Aquinas, and then he says, sorry, no, these are the capital virtues as opposed to cardinal virtues. And I like that because, capital crimes can be punished by death, and these kind of virtues are punished by death here on Earth.
Oops. Whoops.
Oh, yes. Gratitude. Oh, Christopher Smith wrote gratitude and acceptance. That's interesting because I've never used the word acceptance in that way, but it fits. Acceptance of the facts of reality. Grant me the, now I forget the expression.
Prayer.
Yeah. Accept the facts.
Right.
Change the things I can, accept the things I can't.
Live in accordance with reality in your own nature.
Acceptance. That's good. That's good. Acceptance, we tend to think acceptance is, wishy-washy and putting up with stuff, but no, it's only putting up with reality. And, of course, putting up with reality sounds exactly the opposite of what you want to do. Embracing reality. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah. So,
just looking through the chat.
But real quick, I just want to talk about what Ayn Rand's. Ayn Rand. She wasn't religious, and she wasn't a wizard or witch, and she didn't consider 7 to be a magic number. But she did happen to come up with 7 virtues, and those can be read about in the wonderful speech in Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah. Well, why don't you read the list of 7
so
virtues? And I want you to do that because Stephen Katz in the chat has offered what he thinks is the opposite of those 7.
Okay. How about rationality, which basically is a consistent use of your faculty of reason and logic.
Yeah. Well, that one he writes irrationality, so that's obvious.
Okay. Honesty, which is being honest with yourself, that living in accordance with what's real and with your own nature that's actually
okay,
true.
So he's got dishonesty. Good.
All right, well, independence.
As
opposed to obeyance or,
Good. Well, his is dependence on others.
Dependence, yes.
Dependence on others it almost sounds too political or economic, but if you understand that can be completely spiritual and psychological too, then yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about, because we're talking here about these are these are conditions of the mind, you could say. I don't know if you put it that way, but
no, but they're conditions of action too.
Yeah, conditions.
But you're right.
Of the mind.
These are values of character.
Yeah, values of character and values of the methodology of there are epistemological values in here. Okay, so independence is
they cover both.
Yeah, is you need to be independent in your thought.
Right.
So justice.
Well, I would say injustice, but what has he got here? Sorry, they're not in the same order. So, well, which of these do you think is the opposite of justice? Hypocrisy, dishonesty, mercy and withholding praise.
Oh, right.
Good. Yeah, both of those. Mercy. I like that most of us would say the opposite of justice is mercy.
Yeah.
But he's exactly right. Withholding praise. Because the most important thing about justice isn't punishing the evil, although you need to. The most important thing about justice is praising honoring the good.
And defending the good.
So I'm glad that Stephen put it in there that way. Mercy and withholding praise.
Yeah, and then we've got integrity.
Integrity, and he's got, I'm guessing he's got hypocrisy.
Okay.
So that would be the opposite of integrity.
Yeah, that
Good.
Sounds right. And productiveness.
And he's got laziness.
Yeah, and that's sort of like
a little colloquial, but okay.
In line with sloth, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
and finally, the crown of the virtues is pride.
Yes, to which he has humility. Very, very good. That was interesting to see the opposites put in that way.
Yeah, it's cool. And pride being basically knowing that your life is your top value. You are your own top value, and you have a healthy love for yourself, for all the things that you do and that you do well, and when you are acting on these virtues that Ayn Rand lays out, and there are other virtues too. I mean, we talk about courage and even confidence and even patience, and sometimes, depending on the context. But these virtues that she lays out, if you read, and I think Ben Baer has a really good thoughts on how these all integrate with how they relate back to your faculty of reason. That's really excellent. But yeah, it is. These are all reflections of your nature as a conceptual and volitional human being. They are in accordance with that.
So Greg Lewis, productive guy and provider of extraordinary baked goods, says, which disvalue encompasses evasion? And it's interesting because the short and obvious example, since he says value, you would say reason. If he had said virtue, you would say rationality. But Ayn Rand, one of the great Ayn Rand quotes is, there is no evil but one, the refusal to think.
Yes.
And of course, she outlines other evils as well, but that's the root. That is the root, because reason is the root of all human functioning, including the production of the values that life requires. So it would be, the disvalue that encompasses evasion. Well, evasion is the disvalue, but the value that it obliterates is reason. So there you, I guess, if you wanted an actual disvalue, you would just say irrationality.
Right, and you can say that the disvalue in action is where you're acting in a way that is dangerous to your life even, or to the point where you're not going forward in life and pursuing values. There's a lot of harm that you can do to yourself when you evade.
Yeah, acting against values. Whether intentionally or at random. Yeah. Christopher Smith says, a little sloth?
Yeah, I'm doing a little sloth right now.
Yeah, well, a gal's got to know her limitations.
I can't, honestly, every time that comes up, I'm like, I immediately want to watch all the Dirty Harry movies because I love them so much.
Let's do it.
All right.
Or at least the first three. The fourth one's a little iffy.
Yeah, the Man's Got to Know His Limitations, I think that's the second one. And it's so good.
Yeah.
He goes up against the corrupt cop. Oh, my God.
Yep.
Oh.
More in the chat, but
yes,
as always, I'll be reading any chat comments that I missed after. Well, usually I have to wait a couple hours. YouTube doesn't make the chat available until it's sat for a couple hours, and then they all come back.
So Robert, guess what I'm doing right now? I am liking the show on YouTube.
Liking the show on YouTube?
Oh, there I go. Oh, my God, I did it.
Oh, wow. Wouldn't that be like self-gratification? And I think the church is against that one, too.
If you enjoy self-gratification, please like our show.
And if you like our show, go indulge in self-gratification. Why not? All
right.
Yes.
It's so circular.
Absolutely. Wait, we got a longer comment from Jim here that I have to read. Sadly, many people consider the Bible to be a moral field manual and use it as such. In other words, they let the Bible make their moral decisions for them without questioning what the Bible says. They are truly second-hand thinkers in regard to ethics, but they're taking a real gamble with their own future happiness and their own lives. And what happens if they find themselves in a situation that moral field manual does not prepare them for? Well, they close their eyes and say, Jesus, take the wheel.
Yes.
But, I mean,
let God.
Yeah, it's a great point. But the reason I wanted to read it, not only because what Jim wrote is worth reading out loud of its own accord, but one of the points that I made at last night's Great Lakes Objectivists is the interesting thing about adopting a consistent, rational, pro-life, pro-earth philosophy is that it is a field manual for life on Earth.
Yes.
And one of the great things about doing this podcast is that I know that we have kindred spirits out there and you all get it. But newcomers will come along and they don't necessarily have that perspective.
Yeah.
Objectivism, Ayn Rand's philosophy in general, is about fighting evil, or it's about engaging in debates on the internet, or it's about political activism. Well, I'll tell you what, objectivism is great for all of those things, and it's a great weapon. But it's an even greater tool. This philosophy is for living your own best life. That's what we're here for. That's why we're on this planet.
Yes.
Well, that's why we're on a planet.
How lucky we are that we have limbs and a conceptual case called a skull that encompasses your brain and many of your senses.
Well,
and you go out in the world and you can actually move in things on a planet that's hospitable to life.
It's the tricky thing about gratitude. When you experience gratitude for the metaphysically given, it's a strange thing because, in a way, gratitude, it's not like you're thankful. It's not like you owe anybody. So it's not really gratitude in that sense. It's more, and it's not like you're lucky. It's just appreciation of a value.
Yes.
And the fact that it didn't have to be earned, that you were granted a life free and clear just by being born, does not diminish the value of it, the massive value significance of every sensation, of every experience, of everything you do and everything you say and everything you experience. But it does make gratitude kind of a strange word if you only think of it as, oh, well, that means I owe somebody a thank you. That means that I owe something, or something was given to me of choice. It does apply to the metaphysical, but it's a little different in how that plays out.
Yes.
Someone in the chat, Mark in the chat says, I like ethical self-gratification. Look, there are 100,000 ways, including a good meal, including listening to music, art in particular. There are many, many ways to experience life as an end in itself. Things that you do not because they're going to advance your career, not because they're going to improve your home situation, not for any reason other than this is a moment that is an end in itself. If anybody can tell me, short of physically wearing yourself in a way that is damaging, a good reason why self-gratification isn't that, well, I won't even finish the sentence because nobody can. So yes, by all means, folks, if you enjoy good music, if you enjoy good food, if you enjoy any of the pleasures of life, and I mean any of the pleasures of life, as long as they're not doing you any harm and you can rationally justify them, heck with the church and their calls for sobriety and asceticism and chastity and saying no.
Obedience.
So I'm going to, contra Nike, I say, just say yes.
All right. Okay, so this will be brought up again, but I just want to share it with you. I shared this at Glow last night, and it was really, really special and meaningful to me. This is my first copy of Atlas Shrugged, and you'll see that I have like mailing tape all over it, trying to like protect it and everything. Well, unfortunately, all the binding came loose, and
the inside,
you can kind of see here, it's all loose, and
well, we could epoxy it together. But no, I mean,
I just need to stop, I just need to preserve it a bit. And maybe one day it'll be in a museum. It'll be an artifact.
We do have multiple copies of that book in the house, but you always return to your first love.
So we actually read from this. We played Random Atlas last night.
Random Atlas, a great party game.
So pick the number between 1 and 1084 in this case with this book. And then people will yell out. I think somebody did 3.14, 314. I think Greg did that. And we read that. And we read, anything. You read a paragraph or a page of Atlas Shrugged, and then you talk about the context, what's going on, who is speaking, and people start remembering things around that particular scene. And it is just such an amazing, beautiful, inspirational, meaningful, and deep exercise that's so enjoyable among friends who are like-minded. So I thank you to all the Glow peeps out there who are in the chat right now. It's really, really great. And with that...
And with that said, I was tempted to get into Atlas here and read something at random, but no, I'm going to recommend that you all do that for yourselves. Random Atlas is a great party game because, somebody will start reading, and the first question is going to be, what is the scene? What is the context? And some people will get it right away, and some people will be like, I kind of remember what was happening when that person said that or that person did that. A very good game. Christopher Smith says, who is John Galt? It's funny because I talked last night, and I've talked about before, how the book The Fountainhead opens. And if you can remember the first 3 words of the book, The Fountainhead, it will enhance your understanding of the book greatly if you can remember as you read the book that those were the first 3 words of the book. Some people have the idea of Howard Rourke as the angry young man, which he's not at all.
Right.
Here's a brain teaser for you. I also did this last night. Tell me 2 instances in the book The Fountainhead. 2 instances. Just 2 scenes, there should be plenty, right? In which Howard Rourke was angry. So you folks can enjoy that yourself. So it's interesting to go from The Fountainhead and the way that book opens to who is John Galt, at the beginning of Atlas Shrugged. So, folks, point that out. Oh, yeah, we have, of course, folks know the opening lines of The Fountainhead as well, and Robin, Christopher, Matthew have all got it in the chat.
Very good. Brilliant, yes.
I'm kind of like Bernstein, Andrew Bernstein, on that. In that Atlas Shrugged is clearly the greater book, but The Fountainhead remains my favorite.
Yeah, well, I love them both.
Yes. I always say I want to be Howard Rourke when I grow up.
Oh, yes.
If I grow up. Well, folks, thank you for joining us. A bit of a rambling, drinking St. Patrick's.
Yeah, I'm all out.
We are green with envy on this green holiday, and we hope that you are too. Not literally envy. When Ayn Rand talks about envy, she means it in that very specific sense. She talks about the Russian sense of what envy is. It's wishing your neighbor's cow would die. Punchline of a longer joke, but the point is, no, we don't advocate envy in that way. We mean more the greed sense of Gordon Gekko. Greed is good. Jealousy, properly understood and handled rationally, is a call to greater ambition.
Yes.
In that sense, we are green with envy, and we are wishing you a fine St. Patrick's Day. If you are watching this podcast, first of all, if you've made it through this far, thank you. But if you are watching on YouTube, as Amy said earlier, click that like button, because we need to be as big a show as other people. We are envious of their 1,000 subscribers, which we need to get super chats on the show. So if you're not already subscribed, please click the subscribe button. It costs ye nothing but your pride. If your pride is based on such things, no, click subscribe and make that happen. We know that you can, and we appreciate it if you do. And give the show a like. Click the like, the thumbs up. The thumbs up represents so many of the things that we talked about tonight. Some of them obscene, but most of them virtuous. Click that like button. And thank you for joining us. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Oh, clink of the glass there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Despite yours being empty, I think that.
Yes.
I could open you this other Guinness here, but it's...
Oh, but you guys, you're also welcome to be our wonderful leprechaun friends.
Oh, pot of gold.
Lead us to the pot of gold.
There's a pot of gold out there, and it's running a little shallow right now at patreon.com/Robert Nasir.
Yes.
So yes, if any of you would like to join the group of leprechauns who keep this show happening.
That's right.
The very good people who the virtue of charity, I think that came up during the show. I don't know that we agreed it was a virtue, but you can do it anyway. And make sure that next St. Patrick's Day, we are here for you again, and I hope that you will be here for us. Okay, that's enough. Running long, running late. This was fun. I hope you had some fun with it too. We'll be back next week, Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Daylight Savings Time. The UK will still be doing their normal times, but they'll be on BST soon. And I am rambling, and this should be telling those of you, you know who you are, who say, you should do more like your drunken podcasting episode and drink during the show. Maybe, be careful what you wish for. You might get it.
Oh, Jim got it. Jim got the one time that Howard Rourke was angry.
Oh, yeah, we got the one, but that's why it's a trick question to ask for two. You see, yes. That's why I said, name 2 times Howard Rourke was angry. And he, there were some things that happened early in the story with Cameron and his reaction to them that made him angry.
He says, he talked about when he first saw Cortlandt Homes and what they did to it.
Did he? I don't know that he was angry.
I don't know if he was...
The point is, even when Rourke is hurt, it only goes down to a certain point.
Yes.
And again, my point is, so many of us imagine, or did maybe very early on, that Howard Rourke is an angry young man. He's so angry. There was that stage production that they did in Holland. And there were clips of it, and you could see Howard Rourke, the angry architect. Like, well, what story are you telling? The story, nothing in The Fountainhead makes sense if Howard Rourke is an angry young man. No, this is a man of joy and enormous passion, and I hope that each and every one of you, not just on St. Patrick's Day, but also the day after St. Patrick's Day, on those 2 days and no other time. No, kidding, of course. I want you to have that joy, that passion, all of the days of your life, and that is why We wish you every success that you so richly deserve. And we do wish you, whether it's green or brown today, whatever you're drinking, we wish